It's on one leg at a time.
Hello, and welcome back to One Leg at a Time, the podcast. I am Dean Anvar, your host. Welcome back. Episode 4. Zephyr Avalon. What can I say? I just finished watching the interview again. It was a great talk. It was really nice to, to sit down with somebody that I've known for a long time. What can I say? I guess I hope that, if nothing else, his genuineness and his, just warm spirit come through in this talk. Because, Zephyr is a really good guy. He's a good friend to me. He's a good friend to a lot of people in LA. And I would say that we are lucky to have someone like him around town. When he is in town, Zephyr tours in the Zach Bryan band. He's also toured with Haley Reinhart. He and I have been playing together for a long time. He was one of the first people that I had a strong musical connection with when I first started doing gigs here in LA. And we talk about all that stuff. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has watched last week's episode with Harry. That was great, and it's been awesome to get the feedback on that. We got the podcast available now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. So expanding the reach. It's all really exciting. I'm just, pumped about the way that things are continuing to move forward. And gosh, I don't think that I really have much more to say right now. So without any further ado, Zephyr Avalon. There's a lot of questions that I would have for you, or just things that, you are an anomaly to me. You see, you have the gift of the ultimate hang. You seem to manage to be everywhere all the time.
I never stop.
You never stop. And where does that energy come from, honestly?
I guess the energy of never stopping is Louis, no licking. I'm gonna let him lick tonight.
He's not gonna listen. Sherlock never listens.
He's gonna listen. He's gonna lick his paws if he's gonna lick his paws.
Yeah.
I mean, he does it when we're gone anyway.
Is he on medication?
No, he's not on medication.
Nothing?
No.
I've been giving Sherlock. I've been slipping him steroids. It helps.
He's not, because he's not beefy enough.
It's not about that. I
Pull
take
that
the
up.
steroids to beef up.
Pull that up for me, Jamie. Pull up a picture of Sherlock.
They've seen Sherlock.
We'll splice it in. So
the question was, where does your energy come from? Because it seems to be abundant and in no short supply.
yeah, I get that a lot, mostly from my girlfriend who likes to go to bed early. Some of it comes from FOMO. Some of it comes from being an extrovert or an extroverted introvert. I don't think I'm an introvert. Do you think I'm an introvert?
I don't think that you are an introvert.
No.
You seem to thrive in big, settings and very socially.
I say that because, like, as a kid, like, I was sometimes too shy to initiate these social interactions I wanted, but I always wanted to have a part in them. I just didn't know how to participate. So now, as an adult, I don't know. Now that I can, I do.
Yeah.
So part of it is fueled by just being an extrovert, and part of it's fueled by FOMO, and part of it is just sort of feeling like it's necessary.
It's interesting you say that, because I always felt very othered as a kid. And that might have just been because of, like, growing up in a few different cities. Like, as soon as I, moved to Chicago from Canada, like, I just felt like a foreign kid. I had this long name, I had a big mullet. I didn't know it was a mullet. And it was just like, it was not
And now you got
normal.
a mullet again.
It's coming back.
It's coming back.
But that's just because now I'm old enough to go like, no, I thought it was cool when I was, 11 years old, and I still think it's cool. So we're going to do it. I didn't know that I was asking for mullets when I would get my hair cut either. I would just tell them to only cut the front and not the back.
No, they came back like 10 years ago, and then they went away, and now they're like coming back again.
Oh, they're back.
Yeah,
I've been seeing some pretty phenomenal mullets. It's inspiring, actually.
Gen Z was like, we're going to nix. No, it can stay.
No, that's staying. Yeah. it's not that I prefer being home all the time, but it's just like the energy spent a lot of time. Like I was invited to a party last night and I did not go. Part of it was because just stuff was coming up and I was like, you know what I really ought to do is just sort through and work on some stuff. But I almost relish in the opportunity to say no. Like,
I mean, it depends. I mean, if the stuff I'm doing is like pressing and needs to get done, and if I don't get it done, there are going to be consequences which ruin the progress on something I've worked really, really hard on, then no, I maybe I want to go and I'll try to finish as fast as I can, but no, I'm finishing the task. But if it can wait a minute and I want to go, I'm going to go, you know?
I tend to get tunnel vision.
It's
you
weird.
know?
If I have like 3 days to finish a project, I will like zero in and get down to business and work on it. It's even better if I have like 1 hour before I have to like leave for a gig. And that's when I just start the most fire tracks in the studio. But if I
Start them, but what about finish them?
yeah, that's a, you're asking the hard questions now.
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't even intending to necessarily get into this stuff here. I think that this is conditioning that I've gotten, honestly, from the 6 years that it took me to finish my doctorate.
I helped him audition.
Zephyr actually did help me audition, and I just found some of those videos because they're on YouTube, and I hadn't watched them in a while.
We played Giant Steps
We played Giant Steps. We played Evidence.
with a backbeat.
No, we didn't do it.
I'm
with
just
that.
kidding.
I was like, hang on a second.
Don't worry, Thelonious. We wouldn't do you like that.
No, someone would. The conditioning being, all right, you're tasked with doing big projects, and you learn pretty quickly that you're setting yourself up to make yourself go insane by just like trying to do something big. You know, it's one thing to come up with the idea, but like to bring it up to presentable form to be able to submit it as like legitimate work. Like they'll see right through it. So in that sense, if I have 3 days, I'll go, okay, I know that I get 2 solid hours of work, you know, and then like maybe another 3 of distracted but still present, you know. So if I can get 4 or 5 hours each day, that's what'll work. When I was in undergrad, I would do a semester's worth of homework the night before finals week, you know, and just submit it all at once and somehow manage to convince my teachers that
That's insane.
it was not great.
See,
you know.
I would stay out. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. I would stay out with my friends and at night, and then I'd wake up at 6 a.m. with a cup of black tea and do my homework before school. My parents always had this thing. They're like, you can't drink coffee till college because if you drink it now, it's not going to work when you really need it. And I was just kind of like, all right.
Well, it didn't stunt your growth.
Yeah, exactly.
When did you get into music?
Well, probably pretty early because my mom was always teaching flute lessons and going off to rehearsals. When I was born, I think my dad had, my dad had also studied music in college, studied composition at University of Illinois. And
Your dad's also a bass player, right?
yes, and also he's a bass player, yeah. But he was like one of those composers who played an instrument well, but his focus, he wanted to be like a contemporary composer when he went to school for music. His passion was composition. So there were always like little toy instruments for me to mess around with as a kid, and also like if you go to my parents' house, there's like a big collage on the wall of like me as between ages 0 and 2 holding like every vintage Fender guitar my dad had at the time, and
That's sick.
bass. But but I didn't really like get into doing anything too serious until a little later. I think my mom didn't want to force me. She wanted it to be voluntary. So when I was 8, I started taking piano lessons from a lady in our neighborhood. Within the first week of taking lessons, I taught myself the first prelude from Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, the one in C major.
Yeah.
And I learned it essentially by ear from listening to the Glenn Gould recording, a recording my mom hates, by the way. I don't know why, but
Why? Glenn Gould universally acclaimed.
I know, but the way he phrases it, he's like, he does this thing where he goes da 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 da.
Yeah, very choppy.
He does like a staccato note on every.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing.
Yeah, but my mom prefers it more legato.
Sure.
But anyway.
He reinvented the genre.
Yeah. But I always liked the Glenn Gould recording just because I think I liked to annoy my mom by playing it that way because I was just a little shithead.
That tracks.
But yeah, so I got off to a start where I was sort of secretly like just playing back everything my teacher would play to me by ear.
Yeah.
And of course, I'd been hearing my mom and teach flute lessons for years, and hearing my dad play as well, and hearing classical recordings, and that will train your ear if you hear that, if you're exposed to that a lot and consistently at a young age, especially like, hearing students learn flute etudes. Like there's a lot of built-in
Totally.
single line voice leading in that. And it's sort of like,
That's fascinating to me,
like
hearing you say that, because of all the gigs that we've done where you'll start a song and like be playing the melody and the harmony and doing it essentially all perfectly, but completely in the wrong key because of wherever we started from. And it's like that is completely in line with essentially how you relate to music and understanding it and hearing it. It's just,
I have almost, I do. I mean, I do not have perfect pitch, obviously.
I don't either, but as a guitar player, like there's certain guitar things that are like so specifically, like I can identify an open E or A or like a G in a chord, anything like that. Like that's where I'm like, no, that's, this has to be in there.
I can too, but I mean, unless something's like relying heavily on open strings, I can transpose it.
I think in my realm that is more applicable.
It's like intervals are king in my head.
It's interesting because my relationship to music, I kind of had to seek it out a lot more actively. Mm-hmm. And like I started identifying with aesthetics as a big part of it. Like after my Backstreet Boys period and my Dave Matthews Band period, which Dave still rules, sure.
He wakes up in the morning.
Hey, at what point do you feel like you started to strongly identify with playing music? Like when did it become something that you did and you were learning it and you were accomplishing it, by ear and all that? And
okay, so I want to take guitar lessons because my uncle played guitar. My dad plays bass. His brother, my Uncle Scott, he plays guitar very well, and I always saw them jamming in the garage and putting together, shows for the block party that my uncle would throw every year. And I really want to be able to play like him. And my parents said, all right, well, you can play electric guitar, but you got to play something you can play in an orchestra too. And so I said, all right, well, the closest thing, you know what? My dad plays upright bass. I'll just play upright bass.
Yeah.
And then in 5th grade, my dad bought me, or he rented me at first. I think he rented to own like a plywood,
a little mini bass,
like a cherry red plywood 1/4-inch bass.
Yeah.
And I was stoked to have it. That's the instrument that like I always felt like, oh, I could actually get serious with this, like, because even though if I was still at a relatively low level, there's just not that many kids playing bass, so you can like be involved with the kids at the high level. So I kind of like kept up in a way.
Interesting. So you saw a path for yourself at that early of an age where you could go, I'm not like the other kids who play violin and recorder. I'm in it. I'm playing the bass, and I'm going to corner this market.
Yeah.
Smart.
And then, as high school came to an end, I was really into like mountain biking and competitive, and I started, getting a little bit less committed with that. But then I got into college. I wasn't going to study music at UC Santa Cruz as a major, but
what would you have done instead?
I didn't know. I was all over the place. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be a musician. That's such a hard path. Boy, was I right.
Yeah, I had actually one of the bass instructors at DePaul. I'll never forget that he said to me, as I was getting close to graduation and ready to move to New York, and he goes, I wouldn't wish my life on anyone. And as a 20-year-old, I like my life. I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Are you kidding me? And now I get it.
I do get it.
Yeah.
The uncertainty is, man.
Yeah.
No matter how good things are, it's still like, oh.
He didn't say not to do it. He just said, in so many words, like very succinctly, it's tough.
Yeah.
And I now I get that.
The thing that is always like really, at least in my earlier years, like the thing that always drove me to like work and try harder. It wasn't like I have to be the best. I have to prove to everybody I'm the best. It was like playful competition. I was like, I just want to be able to tell like these two homies like, fuck you, I know this better than you.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm
But
with
like
that.
but like we can all know it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like anytime I saw somebody getting a little better than me at something, I'd be like, oh no, fuck no, I'm gonna leave them in the dust. And then I'd put in like way more work and I'd get ahead of them. So I didn't think I was gonna major in music, and actually didn't declare a music major until my 4th year of college. I went in undeclared, thinking I was maybe gonna do environmental study.
But I knew I was going in for music like from the get-go. There was nothing else that interested me, even remotely, you know?
I didn't think I was gonna study music, and I don't probably was a mistake, but I was still taking lessons and ensembles from the first year, which was satisfying some of the hardest credits to make up if you haven't done them by the end.
Sure.
So I was weirdly just following the path without even intentionally following it.
Yeah.
Just following it out of habit and interest.
Yeah.
And I was in the jazz bands, the jazz combo, and the big band whenever I could get in. And the second year, I started taking theory classes on the side, and then the third year, I was like, I'm gonna do the jazz minor. I was a philosophy major by then.
I was just going to say, because I remember you being a philosophy guy, and I was going to ask you.
Yeah. I took an intro to philosophy class freshman year of college, and I was so inspired by the whole thing that I just wanted more.
Yeah.
And then I took logic my sophomore year, and it's like the weed out class. It's really hard, dry material, but to me it was just like Sudoku puzzles. And later I got like hired for the last couple of years to teach it to other students who couldn't pass it. But it was kind of the thing where it's like either you get it and you pass, or you struggle and you just fail.
What does Mel Brooks say to Larry David? He's like, or you got it, or you ain't.
Yeah, exactly. I finished my philosophy degree after 3 years. I took a practice LSAT, and I visited a couple law schools, and I was just like, this looks like it sucks. They're like talking about tax law and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this isn't inspiring. And in hindsight, now I'd probably get down with like learning about some tax law, man. That stuff's interesting to me now. But
maybe for different reasons.
For different
because you're,
yeah.
you know, have to pay taxes.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Figure out what that's all about. Yeah.
So I was like, well, I have one more year, and I still have like a couple gen ed credits to make up. I'll just get rid of the gen eds in the summer. I was taking summer session. I kind of spent the summer between my junior and senior year kind of freaking out, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Oh, all
Were
right.
you gigging around then?
Yeah, I would do jazz gigs around Santa Cruz.
Was it ever enough to feel like that was something that you could leverage into a career?
If I got like $100 gig or like $150 gig, I was just like, oh yeah, man, this is sick.
I was like, what I really want to do is be playing. And I remember my teacher, because I took private lessons with him in the summer between my freshman year and sophomore year. Mm-hmm. And I took a part-time job selling knives. I was doing that knife thing, door to door. Yeah, I was doing Cutco.
Oh,
and
God.
I was like, yeah, man. I was telling him about how busy I was with it. And he was just like, why? He was like, you don't have any responsibilities. He was like, you're here. He was like, if you want to be a musician, this was like such great advice. He was like, just act, especially at that time. He was like, just act as if. Be a musician. You know, now is the time.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to lose. And in the perfect city for it, because it really did give me the opportunity to start being a musician and like looking for gigs and meeting people. And it was pretty amazing how quickly that generated into actual work. And it just made me care a lot less about school, you know, because it wasn't really what I was about. I was like, I'm being lambasted for like ending a phrase on a major chord on the sixth, like, but I'm also like up playing at the Green Mill, you know, and Andy's, and like doing wedding gigs on weekends. My rent was $300 a month.
Mine was $650.
Yeah, so Chicago. I mean, it was really the perfect storm to like continue to get me to be.
You don't need
invested
fucking money
in
for that.
career.
You don't need money for that life.
No,
$300.
no, but I was also, you know, we were in college and living like college kids,
Yeah.
which for me was just mostly eating pizza and watching Simpsons.
Groceries were $25 to $80.
I was just eating pizza.
Fill up the car for $40. But yeah, so I was doing gigs around town. I also was in a band which was called Copacetic. We were trying to be like, we were trying to do like an Afro funk thing.
Classic.
We were way into Budos and Budos band and Antibalas and Fela.
Yeah.
And between the myriad of bands I played around town with and like the jazz gigs, it felt like I was doing more music than anything else, and it kind of made sense to be like, all right, let's get this degree. Like I figured out somehow all the remaining classes needed fit into the last year, so I just did it. I got the degree. I got into Cal Arts, which felt like the biggest accomplishment of my life because it like made me not feel like a fraud of a jazz musician.
There's a lot of legitimacy to getting into that school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to study with motherfucking Darkles and Charlie Hayden and Larry Kuntz and Joe LaBarbera. Nobody can tell me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about if I've studied with them. Well, if you listen to them, that's true, but Cal Arts is a free environment where you are given enough freedom to get more than you ever thought out of your education or less than you could ever imagine because, there's not really juries or anything like that.
Sure.
So if you're somebody who needs to be pushed by a rigid structured program, it's not for you. I remember I spent like 3 months recording my audition tape for USC and Cal Arts, and I was recording like Dolphin Dance and Terrence Blanchard Footprints and
It's still the best.
a couple originals I wrote.
Yeah.
With God, if I went back and looked at the charts, I think I would have a brain aneurysm.
Oh, I love looking at old charts. That's some of my favorite. Like my high school handwritten charts are
Like a
incredible.
like two beamed eighth notes with a tie
Yeah.
between them to be a quarter note. It's like
Yeah,
whatever makes it sound right in the playback.
The
that's what
concept of dividing a bar was just like every bar just had a mind of its own,
And then you're doing it in 7/8 because the cool thing is to like write a tune in 7.
Oh, I never got bit by that bug. I can tell you that.
I did it a couple times.
Yeah.
But most of my stuff is in 4/4. I'd always grown up like driving down past LA to go to visit my grandparents in Escondido, which is North County, San Diego. And I'd always drive through LA and I always see everybody driving around and I'd just be like, fuck, they have such cool shit going on. Everybody here is just cool and has a life, and like I just want to be here where everybody has something going on. And
Yeah.
that's not really true. Not everybody here has a life. You gotta work. You gotta work for your right to be here, man. It's fucking insane how quickly it can all fall apart. And
The deceptive illusions of the palm trees and being oceanside and all that. I mean, it's still where I want to be. I love it here, despite the fact that it's like essentially a failing city that is, so inflated and bloated and dense, and it has its challenges.
It's got some growing pains right now for sure. But
there's just nowhere else that I really feel myself as much as being here.
I'm just not leaving.
Yeah.
I've toyed with the idea. I could leave and go get a ranch somewhere.
I remember you were talking about Vegas even at one point.
Well, Vegas is fun for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then you need to take a break.
I mean, I assume if you live there, your lifestyle is not quite just like living it up on the strip. But I don't know. I don't even like doing that. So
there's cool things, but like everything has to be a destination in Vegas. You can't just. Well, you can. Like there's like good like national. There's like Red Rock and everything outside it. Like, but it's a hellfire furnace in the summer, just like Phoenix.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah, my mom's in Tucson. I mean, they wake up at like 3 a.m. just to avoid the day. Essentially, you have to live like a lizard, They love it. So, I mean, who am I to say?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. When did you discover Steely Dan?
Oh, okay. Well, I think like as a kid, hold on. Shout out
Wait, talking to the mic. Talking to the mic.
Shout out to Gordon, double wonderful. So I saw this album,
That's the Royal Scam,
The Royal Scam.
which is also the record that got me into Steely Dan.
So my dad had like a million jewel case CDs, and I would just like sometimes get bored and just go through every single last one of them. And I found this.
Yeah.
That's upside down, and I really just thought it was such a crazy image, like this dude sleeping while these like four gargoyle city buildings.
Yeah, the
look down on
monstrosities
him.
come to life above him.
Yeah. And
That one just lived in my car CD player, and I would just, I remember like my little sister got into it because we would just be listening to like Fez every morning, and yeah.
So I would listen to that sometimes, and I remember my dad playing "How About a Kiss for Your Cousin Dupree." How about a kiss for your cousin Dupree? Then in like high school, Kanye's album Graduation came out, and Champion was on there.
Right,
and
that
they
has that
sampled.
sample,
They
yeah.
sampled Kid Charlemagne. That was great. I got way into this rap group called De La Soul, and there was a song called "I Know" that sampled Peg.
Yeah.
And
There was
so-
the Black Cow sample in that P. Diddy song, which not
Uptown
advocating-
baby,
Yeah.
Uptown
Yeah,
baby, we
great.
get down. Watched that 1 hour documentary about Steely Dan on YouTube. In college, I started I somehow ended up with Asia on my computer, and then I got Gaucho, and then I got the Lost Gaucho, and then I eventually got Can't Buy a Thrill was on there, but I didn't have like Countdown to Ecstasy, Katie Lied, Pretzel Logic. There's still a big gap in my Steely Danisms. And I was just sort of listening to those like 4 records for the longest time, and also Two Against Nature sometimes.
Yeah.
But none of the like Kamakiriet or Sunken Condos. Still trying to get onto like Morph the Cat and Sunken Condos.
Morph the Cat I got into because Wayne played on it. Wayne Krantz, my
Hero.
inspiration, hero, and former mentor. And so yeah, when that came out, I was heavily invested.
Yeah, I just got way more and more into it in like my freshman year of college. I just sit in my dorm and like that was back when blogs were big, remember? And you could and mega upload was a thing before the guy got like arrested.
Yeah, they really
Sent
put a
to-
stop to illegal music distribution.
They really buried that guy under the jail. But I guess it's not funny. It's kind of dark.
It's all right. We can laugh about it.
But he was pirating music real bad. Well, I wouldn't, but people I know who were definitely not me would
Swim.
would definitely download off these blogs. And anyway, I was looking for like any kind of music I could find with Fender Rhodes in it. I wanted a Fender Rhodes. I'd go to music shops hoping they'd have a used Fender Rhodes. They were all too expensive. Eventually in 2010, I found one on Craigslist for $650. Still have it today.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, Steely Dan was like, especially Asia, there's Rhodes all over that record.
Yeah.
And there's obviously Victor Feldman's Rhodes solo on Black Cow. That's like one of my favorite keyboard solos.
It is so good. That's just so funny that because for me it was just like all about the guitar.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Dude,
but
you got like Mark Knopfler in there doing them stratty licks.
it must have become, more than a passing interest for you. You are a fan of Steely Dan more than anyone I
I'm
know.
a Dan fan.
Yeah.
Only a fool would say that.
It was
It
also
became
one of
like
the
a-
initial bonding things for us was like we
Right.
were jamming and I don't know, it was just like, yeah, Peg, Black Cow, like
I was like,
wait, Home at
I was
Last,
like, wait, you got to come over and we got to just like talk about Steely Dan.
yeah.
And we got to just like shed the lesser known Steely Dan tracks. And then you did.
And I like don't get me wrong, I love Steely Dan. I do. But, you take it to another level, which is great.
But you showed me like Boston Rag and like shit like that. And
I
was like,
did?
yeah, I'd never heard that shit. Or I'd heard it, but like I hadn't really like paid attention to those records.
Interesting.
That
So you were still in development. I just think
yes,
of you
I
as
was. Well, I didn't tell you. I didn't want. I'm not gonna tell you I don't know shit. I'm gonna let you teach me while thinking I already know. Come on.
You did a great job.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna crack this nooner.
Go ahead.
Shout out to Kyle, my bass tech, always bringing me nooners when I need them.
There you go.
When I'm
Of
on
course,
the
this
road.
podcast's still supporting recovery in all forms.
Nooner doesn't make non-alcoholics yet. I guess you got to just get a juice squeeze at that
I
time.
mean, that is obviously a big thing of what we do talk about on this pod, which is
This isn't like
I don't care.
fucking the whole
No, but that's the whole thing, right? Is as somebody who's in sobriety, like I should have no issue, and I don't, with hanging out with somebody who's drinking beer. I'm not here to drink with you. You know, I'm not. I don't go to gigs to drink. I go to gigs to play.
Together. Boy, did we!
Yeah, no, we've done drugs. You know, we've done drugs. We've drank. We've had a great time. I do think that it's important for anyone who is in any kind of early recovery or anything like, you know, kind of dealing with questioning the role of their substance use or alcohol in their life, there's nothing you can't do. And if you feel constantly tempted or you know, somehow like you're always just right on the edge of just fucking up, you got to take a serious look at what is going on. Because I, at this point, feel pretty good about not drinking or doing drugs. I feel like I know how to say no to those things. And that all just comes from building up that foundation. There's nothing about this night that was like, oh, but maybe I go and I get loaded with Zephyr. It's like, no, I came here so that we could talk, so that we could hang, so that we could do some music shit later, you know, whatever we have time for. Yeah. But that's not my purpose here, was to like, you know, seek those types of thrills.
And if I may add, if I may speak a little bit about the time before your sobriety.
By all means, let's let the people know.
Dean cut alcohol out long before he was sober, and
there's a misconception there. It's not that I cut alcohol out before I got sober, as though that was some
you were not interested in it anymore.
I wasn't interested in it because it presented more difficulties than it gave me benefits. It was too expensive. Drinking and driving in LA is a serious problem. Even if you're an alcoholic, you got to figure out a way to
do it.
Yeah, don't drink and drive.
I don't do it.
You've always been good about not doing it. So long as I've known you, you know.
I will leave my car in
line.
the most ridiculously inconvenient place.
Yeah.
And take an expensive Uber home. Don't.
As well you should. When I started getting better connections for the drugs that I preferred doing anyway, it was just like, oh, well, this is a no-brainer. I'll just cut out the drinking. It's cheaper. And I'm still having the time of my life, you know, and it just increasingly became more about that and my own personal private pleasures.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is like you, besides the drinking early on before you were doing the other stuff, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
It became like you would just do that on your own terms, and then you just come hang out, and you wouldn't really drink, and sometimes you'd just be a little bit like less present, or sometimes you'd be kind of you got pretty grouchy sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I know. I mean, I know my temperament could change. I also know that in some ways I kept appearances up enough so that, you know, I just didn't want anybody on my back. But I was, you know, withdrawing in a pretty serious way internally. But that was the thing. It was like I just at the time was secretly like, for whatever reason, just with everything that was going on, I don't know. I felt like I needed something else, you know? I just wanted to feel better. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit because in a way I'm grateful for having gone through those things then. Maybe I was holding myself back in some way, but also I struggled with going out and meeting people and hanging and jam sessions. I remember like going to like $7 grand, you know, being very uncomfortable, but still like, you know, finding the courage to go up and play and meeting people.
You can't stand here. The pool table's in the middle of the room.
Yeah, right. Right. So like, you know, for all of that awkwardness, I would find myself in the bathroom, you know, taking care of my needs.
And there's a guy at the sink trying to give you a napkin.
I mean, it was tough, and I was finding myself. And obviously at a certain point, the scales just tipped completely in the favor of, you know, the drugs now are more important than anything. And
I just want to point out that when that kind of pivot happened, like that's when it appears to me is when it really became a problem that I mean, maybe it was a problem before, but that's when it became a problem that needed to be addressed. It was not really in our early stages of friendship when we were just doing gigs and getting drunk together that you were, I didn't feel like you were leaning on alcohol as a crutch in the same way. I think like,
No, because I wasn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was that alcohol was just a social, like it is for me. It was for you, a social
It was a
activity.
social activity. It definitely helped to, for the hang. I can look back on it and see how um, I could use it as to just avoid dealing with things that were going on like my instinct is always to just like seek comfort. So like, oh, the thing of like having a beer while working, like I could never really do that because then it becomes about having the beer, you know.
Yeah,
And there was a while where I could manage to juggle it, and then after a certain point, I just kind of
no,
lost that ability.
I don't like to have a beer when I'm trying to get things done. It will derail me, and same
Yeah.
with smoking weed.
See, I didn't really ever learn to make that distinction, you
Yeah.
know.
You're at a bougie lunch or whatever, you can have a beer with your lunch, but then you gotta tighten up and get on with the day.
Yeah,
Or else you're just day drinking yourself into going to sleep at 8:30 and
there's that.
waking up groggy at 5.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like I never have really enjoyed just drinking by myself alone. It's a social activity for me, but during COVID when I couldn't see anybody and I couldn't do anything, I couldn't do gigs, there were like several crutches I turned to. There was working, working on tracks, getting into mixing and production and developing that thing. That was probably the most positive outcome of COVID for me. There was I played a lot of GTA 5 aimlessly. The things I turned to were work, exercise, and alcohol. And I started,
you did start running during COVID. I remember that now.
I was running so much. I was 190 pounds,
Yeah,
180 pounds. I would run 2 to 6 miles a day.
yeah.
But because I would just sort of run with bad technique and force myself to finish runs when I was tired, I'd start to run kind of semi-club footed, and then I'd start to get like, injuries on the outside of my tendons on the outside of my knee. And
I've been dealing with that now,
tendonitis.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't run anymore for the most part. I mean, I still think running is good for you, but like I don't.
Running
my-
is still my favorite, and it's been really tough to have to like not run as often
Yeah.
just because it's just like I get blissed out. And
I tried a few things, swapping it for a few things. I tried jump rope. I never really got good enough at jumping rope to
no,
really
because
feel
you
like,
end up hitting yourself in the back of the
Yeah.
legs with that
Yeah.
fucking rope. It's annoying.
But I did that. I mean, that's supposed to burn just as many calories, but it wasn't really enjoyable for me. But like Stairmaster, I really can do that for a while. And,
Oh,
and like,
Stairmaster has the magic time
Hard.
ability of just
Yeah.
completely slowing down time. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like
and
it.
like max incline treadmill, if there's no Stairmaster, like that's great too.
I'll do that from time to time. I did that today, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a walk with the dogs today instead of that, but I just did like machine stuff today,
Yeah.
leg and pull up and dips and stuff.
There you go.
So I turned to just anything to keep my mind from like thinking about the fact that I was completely out of control of my situation and I might have to switch careers if things didn't open back up.
Yeah.
And geez, where do you even begin? I mean, I dedicated my life to this.
Right.
And somehow in 2021, I was blessed with a call from my friend Amir Uzman. And it's not like that was the only person who called me for work that year. Plenty of other people put me onto things they could too, which I also appreciated. But this was a gig that led to a massive change
Right.
in my life. And it started as one gig. It turned into 3 gigs, turned into a small tour, bigger tour, massive tour, which was last year.
Yeah.
So
I am curious to just flash forward a little bit because obviously now you just came off of 2 years of hard touring.
3.
We've talked a little bit about it because I know that, we catch up, whatever. One of the things that I found both on the road, off the road, I kind of discovered how meaningful it was for me to kind of reclaim my health and all the variables of, obviously the road presents its challenges. You can't avoid it, right? At a certain point, as you get older, it's either something you're concerning yourself with or something that you're not. I know how locked in I get when I'm on tour, and I'm curious about how you find it to be gone. What do you do? What do you make time for between the time that you get up, you're on the bus? Where are you? What are you doing? What are you looking for?
So early on, we were just getting shit hammered.
Yeah.
And playing pool every night and just playing poker on the bus. And it was fun, but eventually you just can't do it anymore. You start, your body image gets worse. You start, you're like, okay, I'm not a large anymore. I'm an XL. That's fine. I'm bigger all over. But then when XL starts to feel like everything's too small, you're like, oh, fuck no, I got to do something. So first I tried intermittent fasting, but that didn't really work because you can't drink at night after a certain time of night. And I still wanted to go out and party.
Sure.
So I was doing it, but I was lying to myself, and so it wasn't working. Then I don't know. I flirted with the idea of getting into like gym stuff for a while, and eventually I just a guy named Sean Sposito joined our team last year, and he was just a really incredible peer pressure agent of me going to the gym. And he worked out with me, and we'd hang and we'd talk, and I just figured out a few different sequences of exercises I can rotate from day to day, and
that's pretty huge.
It's really been great for me, and that is for the last year. I would go to the gym nearly every day.
Yeah.
And I had my friend Reed, who plays pedal steel in Zach's band. Like, we were kind of like gym buddies. He'd be like, you go to the gym, meet there at 10. Even if one of us didn't make it, there was no judgment. It was just like accountability.
No, it's never about judgment. I mean, let me ask you this, because like aesthetics notwithstanding, don't you just feel like shit if you're just night after night, like,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
That to me is why I felt like
I can't go
afford to not do that stuff.
I can't go shithouse night after night anymore.
Yeah.
I'm 34 years old, and plenty of people did it a whole lot longer than me, but I mean,
yeah, but you see where that leads. I mean, they struggle or they don't make it.
I want to live a long life, and I want to enjoy myself, and I want to have an alcoholic beverage or two, or maybe 4 sometimes. But but it doesn't need to be shit hammered every time there's any kind of social occasion.
Yeah.
It's, and living out here in the South Bay has made me really reconsider, because it's like, okay, if I'm out drinking, like, I can have a couple drinks when I get somewhere, but then I got to let it get out of my system so I can drive home, because I'm not going to.
There's that. And a lot of people around here are living, there's the beach right here. I noticed that you got a gym right around the corner. I have gym vision now.
Oh, anytime?
Yeah.
That's my gym.
There's your gym. I was like, man, that's nice to be able to walk to the gym.
I love that gym.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I am an anomaly in this sense where, like, I don't expect for everybody to have such a strong connection to keeping themselves like physically healthy. It's just, I don't know how really to explain it, but I suppose I should try. It just gave me such relief, like, and purpose, to kind of like discover that, like, oh, if I do this stuff, it makes me feel good, and it perpetuates this, like, continuing cycle of good decisions, and it allows me to feel like the most like myself that I can,
And perhaps this isn't your reason for doing this, but I have to confess that a part of exercise for me, when things were really hard, there was a separation I got from it that's sort of similar as the separation you get from indulging in substances.
Are you kidding? 100%.
So, like, that's part of it, is like, I mean,
that's running.
Yeah.
Much weightlifting, I would say I get that after the fact. Running, I can get there during it. Like, I have had like straight up psychedelic experiences from pushing myself in a long run, listening to like a Fish show, just like a whole set, and just really allowing myself to get there, and that's amazing.
You don't have the energy to be sad or mad about whatever you were mad about at the end of the run.
I just haven't been able to do it as often, but that's also fine because I know like I can tend to hide out in those activities that will take me out of my surroundings. So like there's also a balance to be found there. And that was another thing too, was like this last couple of weeks I've kind of rededicated myself to some other long-term goals. This podcast being one of them, coming up with music for a new record that I'm trying to do, because it's been like 5 years since I put something out.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had this thought of like, no one is going to do this for me. No one's going to write this stuff for me. I'm not a professional bodybuilder. I'm not an athlete in that sense. It's just, this is something I do so that I can do all those other things.
But you've fitness maxed.
But I also have to bear in mind where that fits into the overall spectrum of my interests in my profession. It's not my purpose. It's, a tool. It's a catalyst for maxing output.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that,
Oh, yeah.
But it's also important to remember that because any of this stuff, and for anybody who's like, I can't get started with working out or exercising or eating better because I have all these other things going on.
You can.
You can.
You spend 3 hours on your phone, so shut up.
Well, or if you don't, or if you, it's just like, and you don't have to go nuts. You don't have to spend 2-3 hours in a gym or running either. But like spend 30 minutes twice a week, like notice how your quality of life starts to improve.
And you could take a day off, but don't take 2 days off. And if you take 2 days off, don't take 3 days off.
We've been going at this for a little while. Are there any final words or message that you would wish to impart upon our eager public?
Yeah. So I mean, it's show up for everybody else and show up for your scene, but don't forget to frickin' show up for yourself. And that doesn't always mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean getting your way all the time. It means like doing what is good for you in your mind, like doing what keeps you well. And that getting your way is not always what keeps you well.
And you're still mountain biking like crazy, or no, dirt biking now rather.
Yeah, I actually haven't been out there in a while. I've been like so tied up here for this last couple weeks.
Yeah.
I was gonna go dirt biking a lot this month, but then my priorities changed.
You got some bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will be dirt biking soon. I love dirt biking.
You can count on that.
In a way that, a lower risk way than someone like Travis Pastrana does it, for instance. I'm not racing, just cruising, but I do really enjoy it, and that's another way to disconnect and do some of my deepest thinking when I'm riding.
All right. Well, anything else?
Yeah. Apologize if this message seemed convoluted, but it was clear to me.
I kind of realized going into this that, for as long as I've known you and for as well as I've known you, there's still a lot of things that I don't know about you. And you fascinate me, and, I am inspired by you always. And, you're an admirable guy, and you're a unique guy, and you're a knowledgeable guy, and
Thanks, man.
You're a great friend.
You too.
You're a great musician. And it's a pleasure to be in your orbit. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, man. To many more.
To many more.
Maybe I can be a co-host to,
You want to be?
Yeah, more problematic guests, more controversial guests you have in the future.
Oh, I've got some good ones lined up.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
okay.
When the music scene Alex Jones equivalent gets called in.
Yeah. We'll strike when that iron is red hot. All right. Well, thanks for getting
One leg your pants on one leg at a time.
One leg at a time. One leg.
Put your pants on one leg at a time.